Picture this. It's 2002. A 31-year-old internet millionaire walks into a room packed with seasoned aerospace veterans, looks them dead in the eye and says he wants to build rockets cheap enough to colonize Mars. They literally laughed in his face. That young millionaire was Elon Musk.
He wasn't just acting on some childhood rocket obsession. He was genuinely terrified humanity was permanently stuck on Earth. So in 2001, he actually flew out to Russia to try and buy refurbished intercontinental ballistic missiles. He planned this crazy Mars greenhouse stunt just to get the public excited about space again. The Russians literally spat on him and quoted an utterly ridiculous $8 million per rocket.
Keep in mind, he had just sold PayPal for $1.5 billion, taking home exactly $180 million. The sheer scale of the financial gamble he was about to take is staggering. He was gearing up to take nearly every single cent of his payout and burn it on rockets that, at the time, had a really bad habit of exploding.
On his flight home from being spat on in Russia, Musk boots up a spreadsheet and calculates the raw materials costs of building a rocket from scratch. The result? The raw materials cost roughly 3% of what the big aerospace companies were charging. 3%! The markup was absolutely absurd. In that little spreadsheet epiphany, SpaceX was born.
To pull this off, he needed a serious team. He hires legendary propulsion engineer Tom Mueller, who was literally building rocket engines in his garage for fun, to design the Merlin engine on a total shoestring budget. They set up shop in an El Segundo warehouse. The crew were mostly brilliant misfits, engineers rejected by NASA and Boeing for being too unconventional, working grueling 80-hour weeks for basically startup salaries.
But cheap materials and a brilliant sleep-deprived team don't guarantee a working rocket. What followed was a brutal, wildly compressed 3-year sequence of incredibly expensive, escalating disasters. Let's look at Flight 1. It launched from a tiny Pacific atoll called Omelek Island, and it lasted exactly 25 seconds. A fuel line, corroded by the salty ocean air, started leaking. The Merlin engine caught fire, the rocket tumbled, and crashed right back onto the pad. In under a minute, $90 million and 4 years of exhausting work just went up in smoke.
Exactly 1 year later, Flight 2 takes off. It actually flies beautifully for 5 minutes. But then, a tiny collision during stage separation sends the upper stage spinning completely out of control. It plummets right into the Pacific, taking its entire payload with it. Which, incredibly, actually included the ashes of James Doohan, the guy who played Scotty on Star Trek. Fast forward to 2008, and things are looking absolutely dire. Musk is essentially broke, borrowing rent money from friends. He's facing a totally impossible choice. He has $40 million left, and Tesla is also weeks away from bankruptcy. Instead of picking one to save, he splits the cash right down the middle, 50% to Tesla, 50% to SpaceX. If either fails, both die.
So Flight 3 on August 2nd, 2008 absolutely had to work. Everything was riding on it. It launches flawlessly for 2 minutes, but then disaster strikes yet again. Residual thrust from the first stage pushes it right into the second stage just after separation. The second stage is totally destroyed, taking their final expected chance of corporate survival right down with it.
The reality in that control room was devastating. Musk walked to the back of the room, completely broken, and vomited. Yet somehow, within just hours, he sends out this desperate, totally defiant, company-wide email. SpaceX is not going to die. I will never give up, never.
What happens next is just absolute frantic madness. The aerospace industry standard to turn around a launch after a failure was a minimum of 6 months. Musk gave his team 6 weeks. The team practically moved into the factory, literally sleeping on the floor, racing the clock before their last remaining dollars completely evaporated.
During those sleepless nights, they actually found the culprit. It wasn't some massive structural flaw. It was a tiny timing error in the stage separation sequence that created a 1.5-second overlap. And they fixed it not with massive new hardware, but simply with a software patch.
The ultimate test came on September 28, 2008, at 4:15 p.m. The final Falcon 1 lifts off from Omelek Island. The Merlin engine burns perfectly. Stage separation is brilliantly clean this time. The Kestrel second stage engine ignites flawlessly.
9 minutes and 31 seconds. That's the exact moment the Falcon 1 reached orbit, officially becoming the first privately funded liquid-fueled rocket to ever do so. Down in the control room, Musk, who had been totally stone-faced for the entire ascent, broke down into uncontrollable sobbing.
The timing of this success was nothing short of miraculous. Just 3 weeks later, NASA stepped in.
Having watched SpaceX finally prove their orbital capability, they awarded the near-dead company a $1.6 billion contract for 12 ISS cargo flights. Without this, SpaceX would have closed its doors anyway.
That success completely changed the trajectory of spaceflight. Falcon 1 never flew again, but SpaceX aggressively pivoted to the Falcon 9. By 2012, Dragon docked with the ISS. By 2015, they achieved the impossible by landing a first-stage booster. And by 2020, they were launching actual astronauts, permanently ending America's reliance on Russian rockets.
Looking at the big picture, this was a 6-year, $100 million gamble with a terrifyingly thin margin for error. One reality meant total personal bankruptcy and absolute ruin for Elon Musk. The other birthed the entire future of commercial space travel, creating a company that dominates the global aerospace industry today.
The difference between those two realities, the absolute pivot point of modern human spaceflight, all came down to 1.5-second software patch. It makes you wonder, what other massive leaps in human history are hanging by a thread just as thin?